America is often called the world's most powerful country. It's a leader in technology, a hub of innovation, and an economic giant. Yet, every single year, millions of Americans face a reality that seems completely at odds with that image. Power outages, soaring electricity bills, and an energy supply that feels anything but stable. We've all seen the headlines. Massive blackouts in Texas during a winter storm. Wildfires in California forcing utilities to shut down power lines for days. These aren't just isolated incidents or freak accidents. They are symptoms of a much deeper, structural problem hidden within America's power grid, a problem that affects ordinary people far more than most of us realize. So, how can a global superpower struggle with something as basic as keeping the lights on? At its core, the problem is that the American power grid is old, overstretched, and dangerously fragile. Much of the infrastructure that delivers electricity to our homes, schools, and hospitals was built decades ago. We're talking about transformers, power lines, and substations that are 70, 80, or even 100 years old. These systems were designed for a different era, a time before the massive energy demands of today. They were never meant to handle our current population size. The explosion of electric vehicles, the countless data centers that power our digital world, or our always-online households. Because this foundation is so old, even minor disruptions can have catastrophic consequences. A single fallen tree branch or a small equipment failure can trigger a chain reaction, causing massive outages that leave entire cities in the dark for hours, sometimes even days. It's like trying to run the latest high-speed software on a computer from the 1980s. Eventually, it's going to crash. So why does this problem exist? Why hasn't it been fixed? One of the biggest reasons is chronic underinvestment. For years, crucial upgrades to the power grid have been kicked down the road. These projects are incredibly expensive, they're politically unpopular, and they're largely invisible to the public, that is, until something goes terribly wrong. Utility companies, often driven by short-term profits and shareholder demands, have little incentive to invest billions in modernization projects that won't pay off for years. It's easier and more profitable to patch up the old system than to build a new one. Another major issue is fragmentation. The U.S. power grid isn't a single, unified system. It's a patchwork of separate regional grids, many of which don't communicate or coordinate effectively with each other. This means that when one region has a surplus of power and another is facing a critical shortage, it can be incredibly difficult, or even impossible, to transfer electricity where it's needed most. This lack of coordination not only makes the system less efficient, but also dramatically increases the risk of cascading failures, where a problem in one area spreads like a virus across the network. And then there's the elephant in the room: climate change. The increasingly extreme weather we're experiencing is exposing the grid's weaknesses like never before. Record-breaking heat waves cause electricity demand to skyrocket as everyone turns on their air conditioning. At the same time, intense hurricanes, wildfires, and freezing temperatures are physically damaging the aging infrastructure that was never built to withstand such extremes. The grid is being squeezed from both sides: higher demand, and a greater risk of physical failure. For everyday Americans, this systemic failure comes at a very real and personal cost. Power outages are more than just an inconvenience. They disrupt every aspect of modern life. Work grinds to a halt. Online schooling becomes impossible. Critical healthcare services, especially for those who rely on powered medical equipment at home, are put at risk. Families are forced to throw out hundreds of dollars worth of spoiled food from their refrigerators. Small businesses lose revenue every hour. They're forced to stay closed. And for the most vulnerable among us, like the elderly or those with chronic illnesses, a prolonged outage during extreme weather can be a life-threatening emergency. Even when the power stays on, we all feel the impact in our wallets. As utility companies spend more and more money on emergency repairs and maintaining their failing systems, where do you think those costs go? They're passed directly on to us, the consumers, in the form of higher electricity bills. For many middle-class and low-income households, the rising cost of electricity is becoming a significant financial burden, forcing families to make tough choices between keeping the lights on and paying for other necessities. Over time, this constant instability and rising cost erodes something fundamental: our trust in the public systems we depend on every day. It's natural to wonder why being a superpower doesn't automatically fix this. America has the world's most powerful military and the largest economy. Surely it can manage its own infrastructure, right? But global power doesn't guarantee domestic efficiency. Military strength and economic influence don't magically translate into well-maintained bridges, roads, or power grids. In fact, the very complexity of the American system can make these problems harder to solve. Fixing the grid involves navigating a maze of complex regulations, political gridlock, and competing interests. Large-scale infrastructure projects require close cooperation between the federal government, state governments, and private utility companies, a level of collaboration that is increasingly difficult to achieve. In today's divided political environment, everyone agrees there's a problem, but nobody can agree on who should pay for it or how it should be done. So, progress stalls, and the old fragile system remains in place. But this isn't a hopeless situation. Fixing America's power grid is absolutely possible, but it requires a serious, long-term commitment. The first step is modernization. This means investing in new, high-capacity transmission lines, upgrading old substations, and burying power lines in high-risk areas to protect them from storms and wildfires. We also need to invest in smart grid technology. A smart grid uses digital technology to monitor energy usage in real time, anticipate demand, and automatically reroute power to prevent outages. It makes the entire system more efficient, resilient, and responsive. Improving coordination between the regional grids is also critical to ensure that power can be shared across the country during emergencies. Furthermore, we need to update the regulations that govern our utility companies. The current model often incentivizes short-term profits over long-term reliability. We need a new framework that rewards investments in resilience and modernization. Renewable energy sources like solar and wind can also be part of the solution. When paired with large-scale battery storage and a modernized grid, they can help reduce the strain on the system and provide clean, decentralized power. But perhaps the most important shift needs to be in our mindset. We need to start treating electricity as the essential public infrastructure that it is, just like clean water or emergency services, and not just another commodity to be bought and sold. When we view the grid through that lens, the decisions we make about investment and regulation begin to change. In conclusion, America's failing power grid isn't a mystery. It's the predictable result of decades of aging infrastructure, delayed investment, and systemic inefficiencies. While the country continues to project strength on the global stage, its domestic systems tell a different, more vulnerable story, one that directly impacts the lives and livelihoods of millions of Americans every year. The real question is not whether America has the capability to fix its power grid. The question is whether it has the political will to act before the next major blackout forces its hand. Once again, thanks for watching. If you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the issues that shape our world. See you in the next one.